Welcome to the Panic Room, where we talk about all things panic-inducing. I am the Queen of Panic. Warning, some episodes may contain content that may be disturbing to others. Viewer discretion is advised. Now let the games begin.
1 hour left. That's how long I have left before I die. If I had known the stakes were this high, I would have never played, but now it's too late. I'm almost out of time. Now that I think about it, if I had played fair with all my opponents, maybe I wouldn't have gotten into this mess. But it's too late now. I'm a dead man walking. Even now I can feel him approaching. He's so close now. I'm sorry, I got off track. It's not every day you find out when you will die. But I have to ask you if you did know when you will die. What would you do? Would you try to prevent or simply enjoy what days you have left? You never really know how far someone will go to stay alive until they're thrown into that sort of situation. The things you do will both terrify you and the people around you. I know, because for the past month now, I've been living on nothing but borrowed time. Time I took from the people around me. It was the wrong thing. I know that. But when you're in this situation, I will tell you right now, you will do the same thing. That I can promise you. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself again. I should start at the beginning and explain why I'm writing this down. Well, like I said, I'm on a timer, and I need to at least tell someone my story. Otherwise, there's absolutely no point in this. I need someone, no, anyone, to know my story in case they are in my situation. You can learn from my mistakes. You see, I'm a gamer. I don't play video games, card games, or complex physical activities. No, I'm what you call a simple gamer. I seek out any competitive game and play until I win. Like poker, blackjack, or even charades. I don't care what it is. If there's a prize or just the satisfaction of being better than somebody, then I will play. So a month ago, while I was at my local bar, me and some of my mates were simply hanging out and looking to pick up some chicks. A usual Friday night for me and the guys. But before we could get busy, I was approached by a woman with short raven hair, and she wore a business suit with a skirt. She was smoking hot, especially with the glasses. She looked at me and smiled, and she raised a finger and gestured me to go follow her, and naturally I obeyed. She led me into a corner of the bar and immediately reached into her pocket and pulled out an envelope. She handed it to me, but before I opened it, she stopped me and looked me into my eyes. That was the part I started to become afraid, because her eyes had no irises. Her eyes were nothing but pitch black. When she spoke, her tone was a mixture between being threatening and calming. All she said to me was,
"Do not open this in public. Inside this envelope is a location to a place you will find challenging. My employer understands you are fond of games and wants to play the biggest game of your life. If you win, you will receive everything you desire. But if you lose, you will lose everything and everyone you know. The choice is yours. If you want to play, of course."
And within an instant she was gone. She vanished completely from my senses. I looked down at the envelope. Her employer wanted to play a game. I love to play games. And she said if I won, I would receive whatever I desire. To be honest, I would love to have her forever, or Maybe all of this guy's money. But then again, why should I listen to her? I told myself. She's just some chick I met. How do I know she doesn't want to mug me or even kill me? Or who am I kidding? I have nothing to steal. And as far as I'm aware, no one wants me dead. So what should I do? That's what I asked myself as I looked back to my friends. The smiles on their faces. I would give anything to see those smiles again, instead of the rage I see in my nightmares. I was an idiot that night. I wasn't thinking. If I knew what the game was, I would have never listened to that stupid bitch, but I wanted a challenge, so I left the bar without telling my friends goodbye. I walked down the street and into an alley, and I slowly opened the envelope and revealed an address. I won't bother telling you the address since that bitch and her employer left a long time ago. Anyway, I went to the address. It was a large hotel with security lined up all across the building, in every window and every street. Whoever this girl's employer is, he must have some serious money, I thought as I walked inside the building. When I entered the premises, the woman was there. She was standing in an elevator and gestured for me to follow. I entered the elevator with her and slowly began the ascent to the top of the building. I turned to her and asked, "So what exactly am I going to be playing?" This was the point of no return, because when she looked at me and smiled, she did it like she was about to commit a murder.
Well, if I told you your options, it would ruin the fun,
she said as the door opened. She stepped into the dark hallway. It was barely lit with only a few lights on. It was enough to see where you were going. I slowly stepped out of the elevator and followed her down the hallway to the door at the end of the hallway. I was careful where I stepped, but as I was walking, I could have sworn I felt something brush against my leg at least 3 times. Maybe more, I can't quite remember. When I finally reached the door, the woman opened it and asked me to enter. If I knew what came next, I would have ran away as fast as I could. Actually, now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure if I did, I would have been killed by him. As I walked inside the dark room, the door slammed behind me. I quickly turned to the door and realized it was locked. Before I had a chance to question what was going on, a calm but haunting voice spoke.
I've been waiting for you to arrive. Please, take a seat.
In a matter of moments, a lightning bolt struck, and within sync of it all, the lights in the room turned on. I looked behind me and saw a desk with a man sitting behind it. He was dressed in a dark business suit. His hair was short but black, and like the woman, his eyes were pitch black. He was an old-looking man. I originally thought he was about 50 or 60 years old because of his appearance. But the most haunting thing I thought about him were the dark veins on his neck that appeared every few seconds. The man gestured to the chair in front of the desk and smiled. I slowly walked over to him and sat down at the chair.
Before we begin, I shall let you know that I'm an expert at games. It's my favorite pastime. The overall thrill of having little chance of succeeding is just so amusing.
His voice was cold as ice, with a hint of a murderous intent. I gripped the chair with my hands and tried to relax. I breathed and looked at him calmly. "So, what are we going to play? I should let you know I have never lost at anything," I said proudly, which made him raise an eyebrow.
I am aware of what you are capable of,
he said calmly. He began to reach into the drawer and pulled out a deck of black cards with strange-looking markings on the back of each card.
I've been watching you for a long time, and I have to admit, you are good.
He said with a smile as he started to shuffle the deck. I sat up straight and looked at the cards. How long have you been watching me?" He looked at me and grinned.
since you started playing.
My eyes widened at him. I started to laugh. Yeah, sure you have, mister. If you've known about me that long, then you should know that I'm an expert at cards. And more importantly, why would you only talk to me now? He looked at and slammed the cards onto the desk and spread them out in a straight line.
I am aware that you are an expert at cards, but we won't be playing cards.
This caught my interest as he slowly picked up one card and showed it to me. It had a picture of a chessboard and what appeared to be chess pieces with skulls on them. He quickly put the card back in the deck and looked into my eyes.
Here is how things will work. You will draw a card, and whatever card it is will be the game we will play. Some will be simple. Some will have dangerous rules, but there are also some games you will not have heard of. Pray you don't get one of those.
He said in a serious tone. I looked at the cards. Why not? I asked him quietly. He looked at me with a look of annoyance.
Because if you do, you will not be the same.
He began to slowly shuffle the deck again. He then quickly slammed the cards on the desk and laid them out in a straight line. He sat there and waited for me to pick. I looked over every card and they were all the same. There was no way for me to tell which one was what. I didn't even know what most of these games were going to be. Which one, I asked myself. I raised my hand and slowly hovered over it. I began to pray it was an easy one. The words he said started to echo in my mind. I don't know why I was so worried. I mean, I had beaten everyone and this old fool should be easy, but I think it was the fact that I didn't know what the game was that was most terrifying. I slowly lowered my hand to a card in the middle and picked it up. My eyes were clamped shut as I raised it to my face. I opened my eyes and what I saw, I didn't understand. It was a picture of a man standing in the center of the card, but he was surrounded by ghosts who looked like they were screaming at him. I looked at the man, and he was curious to see what I got. I handed the card to him, and he looked. The man smiled wide and said in a vicious tone,
Well, consider life over, my friend. Now, you're on a timer.
I was confused and he knew it. He lowered the card for me to look at.
This is Death's Game. In Death's Game, the objective of the game is to outlast your opponent.
I still didn't understand the game, but I noticed that on my wrist a set of numbers started to appear. It looked like a timer with the numbers 1, 24, 60, 60. The timer started to count down. I was shocked by the initial appearance, but now it was ticking down. I turned to the man in shock, but noticed on his wrist was a timer as well, with the same amount of time, and it was also counting down.
Here's how the game works. We each get 2 days to begin with, but the timer will slowly go down and indicate how long we will have left. However, the objective of the game is to outlast the other. So, in order to gain time, you need to sin.
I shook my head in confusion on what he meant. He raised a finger and pointed at me.
In order to gain more time, all you need to do is perform an act of sin. For example, if I rob someone, I would gain about 30 minutes. But if I were to kill someone or torture an animal, I would gain an hour or more. It ultimately depends on how bad the act is.
I sat there in shock and shook my head. No, I don't want to do this. I don't want to play this game. How do I stop this? I screamed at him, but he just laughed in amusement.
You can't stop. Once the game begins, it only stops when the other person is dead.
I looked at him with wide eyes. I looked to the timer and started clawing at it with my fingers, but all I did was create some small cuts. I winced in pain and I looked at the man with anger in my eyes. He stood up and spoke in an annoyed tone.
Look, you were the one who wanted to play, not me. Besides, even if you didn't show up, I would have had my assistant go and find someone else for me to play with.
I was shaking uncontrollably as I watched him walk over to me and patted my shoulder softly. He started to walk out the room.
Did this to yourself, you know.
I sat there and I heard the door open, but I turned and screamed at the top of my lungs. Wait, who are you? He turned and looked at me. He smiled wide and spoke one last time before vanishing into thin air.
You know who I am. After all, we're playing my game.
And in an instant, he was gone. I stood up and looked at the timer. 1:23:57:32. I was playing a game and all I needed to do to win was outlast him. Once it was over, I could move on with my life. I walked down the hallway and went down the elevator. Once I was on the ground floor, I noticed all the security was gone. They must have left with him. I slowly made my way out of the hotel and onto the streets. All I had to do was sin, and I could gain more time. But the less serious the deed, the less time I would receive. So for the first day, I simply stole some things from a grocery store and went home after that. But all I got was 1 hour. It wasn't enough time. At that point, I had only had a day and 3 hours, so I amped up to my deeds. I stole from some homeless people, which got me a few hours. But then, at that point, I realized I needed to do more than just steal. I looked over the street I was on and saw a prostitute. It was late at night, so these girls would usually come out a lot. I walked up to her and asked her to service me in a nearby hotel. When we got there, I did the deed with her. Surprisingly, this got me an hour. But I was running out of time, so when she had her back turned, I had an idea. I walked over to the kitchen and grabbed a knife. As she walked over and grabbed the door handle, I grabbed her from behind and slit her throat. She dropped dead within an instant, without a scream or a sound. I stood there with the knife in my hand, and within a few seconds, I had realized what I had done. I had just murdered a woman without any reason, only to keep myself alive. But you see, that's where this gets interesting, because I checked my timer and I had a full 24 hours added to my wrist. A full day, and all I had to do was kill this slut, this disgraceful human being. I know what I needed to do now. I went into the bathroom and cleaned myself off all of the blood that was on my hands and face. Once that was done, I left and I went looking for my next victim. So I prowled the streets for more sluts looking to get paid so that they could have a good time. I gave them all a real nice time. After a few days of killing, my work started to appear in the paper and on the news. I was becoming famous. You probably would have heard about me if you lived in England. But during one fateful night stroll, I had recently taken another victim. I had a whole week on my timer. I was feeling pretty good until I saw a group of people recognize me. It was my friends. They were looking at me with horrified faces as they realized I was covered in blood. In that moment, I knew they were going to call the police. In fact, one of them already had their phone out. But I stopped them the only way I could. I had 2 weeks of time now because of that. I spent those 2 weeks in my apartment wallowing in my mistake. I had killed my friends, people I had known since I was a child. At the time, I was blaming that monster of a man for doing this to me. If I had never met that bitch, my friends and all those other girls I have killed would still be alive, but it wasn't his fault. It was mine. I did this to myself. I did this to myself. I did this to myself. I didn't bother killing anyone else after that day. I had betrayed the people I had trusted. I could not be forgiven for the things that I've done. I am a monster. This game needs to stop. I have to put an end to it. I rang the police a few minutes ago as I typed this, and they will be here any second. So as I sit here waiting for the pigs to show up, I'm going to give you some advice. If you are ever approached by someone who promises you anything if you win a game against their employer, make sure you check their eyes. Well, that's all I really have to say right now. Oh, excuse me for a second. Somebody is at the door. Case number 214177858. Date October 1st, 2014. Reporting officer Deputy Williams. Prepared by Corporal Stevens. Incident type murder. Address of occurrence 47 Kentish Town Road, London, NW1 8NX, United Kingdom. Evidence: fingerprints taken from door and laptop. Footprint: size 10 Nike Air found in drying paint. Computer: found on desk with open Word document. On October 1st, 2014, at approximately 21:32, the owner of apartment 23 dialed 911 and proclaimed to the officers stationed at the time that he was the murderer of more than 30 victims in the past month. He also stated that he was willingly surrendering to the police and that this is not a hoax. Deputy Williams arrived on the scene at around 21:40, responding to the 911 call. He and several other officers discovered the owner of the apartment dead in the center of his apartment. The officers at the scene immediately called in for an investigation unit and searched the apartment for anything suspicious. The investigation team arrived at 21:50. The cause of death was originally believed to be a sudden heart attack. However, upon further investigation, it was discovered to not be the only cause of death. The man's bones were completely crushed, and all of his muscles were torn apart. At this current time, there is no physical evidence on what or who caused these injuries. Strangely, the body of the deceased was discovered with both of his eyes pitch black, and the veins on his body to have turned a dark shade of black. At this time, the investigation team has no answers for how this happened. There is no evidence to suggest a break-in or that any other individual was at the scene. However, it has been noted that the deceased man's laptop was found on with an open document with only a single sentence written.
You did this to yourself, you know.
If you would like to submit your stories, please check out the Panic Within subreddit. I go over those stories that are submitted, and I go ahead and I narrate them. I say go over, but I narrate all of them. So if you're interested in something like that, go ahead and take a look in the description, and you'll find the link there. We also have a Discord. You can come and hang out and get spooky with me and other narrators. We post new content, up-and-coming videos, promotions, and we also just hang out and chat, and you can come and hang out with us there. If you're interested in that, link is also in the description below. And last but not least, if you are interested in doing a collab with the King of Panic or myself, you can absolutely reach out. If you're another creator, you can do one on our channel, we can do one with you. We are completely open for collab as of right now. Looking for new stuff to do and very excited for anybody who reaches out. The best way to do that is through Twitter or Discord. I do check Instagram and I will get back. It just might take a little longer because I'm super bad at that, but I've been trying to be better. So if you do reach out there, even if it takes a couple days, I'll be there. But like I said, we're excited, so please definitely reach out, and we're looking forward to it. And as always, thank you for visiting the Panic Room. You have successfully made it to the next portion of your tour. Please stay tuned for your next prompt. Click the like button and subscribe to receive notifications for when the next portion of your tour is ready to join. Thank you for watching. Don't let the panic drown you.